Hi, it's Lisa Cuneo and welcome to my scrapbook table. A month or two ago, I did an album share of heritage photos, and I promised to do volume 2 soon, and so this is volume 2. Just a quick recap. When my mom passed away, I became the keeper of all of her photos because that's just kind of my thing. And I went through and sorted them first by decade and then closer to exact years as I could. And occasionally I flip through those, and whatever happens to spark a memory or an idea for a page, I pull those out and I do them. I have not done them in any particular order. Now, in my 2 albums so far, there will have to be a third because 2 are completely full, and I may do some more. But in the albums so far, they're loosely by year in chronological order, but they're not exact because there's some overlap and things, and I just did them in a way that made sense to me. So this is the first page of album 2. And I included a poem on here. It's inspired by the work of George Ella Lyon and Levi Romero. And they have the idea, it's an idea for English teachers actually, to give students kind of the framework for a poem that they fill in to kind of get them thinking. And so I took that idea and I wrote my own poem about where I'm from. And I will link the video for that in the description box below rather than reading it all again if you're interested in that. It is a nice exercise, and if I can find the link to the prompt, I will put that in as well. Okay, these are my earliest photos. This is my hospital picture, and this is my first day at home with my mom and dad. I would assume one of my older siblings was taking the photos. Here's some photos of me as a baby with my siblings. I did some torn edges along here, some labels to write on, and just a few stickers, and then some tabbed layers up here. This, I forget the company that I bought these tags from. They were quitting doing scrapbooking stuff. They were switching their focus, and so I bought a bunch of their stuff online on clearance, and I can't remember what it was, but I just love these. And I used some old branding strips from a basket where I keep them, and I did some mixed media as well in yellow, a blue, and black. And I stamped the title. This one, this is not a page. That was something I tried and it didn't work, so I just worked over it. It's fine. I bought these papers at Archivers probably in 2007 or so. They are really old, but these are pictures from 1974 when we were visiting friends of my parents in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And then these are photos of my grandparents and me and my grandpa there. They spent winters in Florida, and every year between mid-January to mid-February, somewhere in there, we would go to Florida to see them. And this is them with their camper and their big tricycles that they rode. I love those photos. And here's where things are not necessarily in order. This layout is me about 5 months old. This is my grandpa. I never remember him with hair. Like that's pretty funny to me. He lived from 1897 to 1988. And oh, actually, I see in my notes He was being silly and wearing a wig. No wonder. Anyway, this wall that's behind him, the stone wall, he built that stone wall in the house that I grew up in. And he adored me, and I him. So this was some more creative journaling. Sometimes it's hard to journal when you don't know the story. And I don't, but that's what I journaled about. The fact that I did not know the story. I love these papers. I do not remember what they're from. Some people can look at papers and they automatically know what company they are from. That is not my gift. I do not know, so I can't tell you. But I wrote, I wish I knew the story behind this photo. I'm happily picking a bouquet of dandelions, but I wonder who was with me. What were they saying to get me to smile? Where did the adorable little sweater come from? So sometime if you're having trouble journaling, maybe just talk about the fact that you're having trouble journaling and you don't know what to write. So then I did this layout of some early friends. These were neighbors. I went to their house a couple afternoons a week to fill in the gap from when my mom went to her job as a nurse to when my dad got home. And so the girl and I were about the same age. Her name's Kristen, her brother was Kevin, and we played a ton. So I just wrote about them, and here's a birthday party that they were at as well. I've talked about third grade on here, and some of the layouts in this album I have done on camera. Many of them were done before I had a channel, and this is one of those. I've talked about Miss Meehan and how much I loved her and her class, and so this is one of my spelling tests from her. She was famous for these little stickers that smelled like things. You can still smell a little bit of orange, and that is a photo of my actual spelling book from third grade that I still have. This is a ton of journaling about third grade and how meaningful it was to me. This is a journal that I did in third grade. Here is like a schedule from an activity day that we had about colonial days. Oh, what's this? This was the Social Studies Award she gave me. And this was, we learned about peanut butter, all about peanuts and peanut butter that year. So anyway, I made a pocket page for some keepsakes. This is one that I did last summer, I believe. And I had a lot to write about. And here's a card from her that she sent me recently. We actually, my brother and his wife went to high school with her, and so she had seen them and she sent me a card. These are some photos that she shared with me, and I wanted to do quite a bit of writing about that. This is some Simple Stories paper, and I also used some rub-ons. I believe they're $49 Market. I am looking for a third grade picture here, and I don't know if I'm going to find one. I may have to adjust that in some way. This is one of my favorite pages I've ever created, not because the page is wonderful. It's pretty tame and plain, but when my dad died, I found this in his drawer of keepsakes. And I won't read you all of this, but I loved to play school, and usually my students were my dolls or my stuffed animals. But sometimes I had a real student, my dad. I would make up math quizzes, and he patiently took them, always missing a few problems on purpose so I could correct them. After he died, I was delighted to find some of those old quizzes among his keepsakes. Dad shared my affinity for math, and it warms my heart to know he kept the quizzes. So I just love that. Here's some friends when I was a little bit older. This is probably upper elementary school. This was middle school. That was my Girl Scout troop. This was actually at Girl Scout camp. And this kind of goes backwards again now, but that's okay. It doesn't really bother me because this is just a collection of memories, not really to be in chronological order. I did some mixed media on him here. I think this is the very first layout that I ever did hand stitching on. And that's a photo of little tiny me behind our house in 1971. Goes this way. And here are some more from the same time frame. All right, and then the last little bit here. These were travel photos from Florida. I just used some old travel paper. Here are some Christmas pictures. This was mid-70s. And anytime in here that I see people who were family, friends that others might want to recognize at some point, I tried to make a little note about that. I'm pretty sure I did this one on camera not too terribly long ago. Then there's this, Rainbow Paradise. This was long before I had a YouTube channel. This was a place we went fishing when I was a kid. Just some good pictures of my mom and dad. Let me pull these in a little bit. See if I can get them both on screen. There we go. I have a magnet over here to help me keep my place. This is some vintage Disney. And this paper was originally white, but I scuffed it up with some gray so that it wasn't so bright against these very vintage feeling photos. Some more Florida photos. These are my dad and me visiting my grandparents. And I actually looked it up. The place where they camped, Fox Trailer Court, 2020 Queen Street, North Fort Myers, Florida. And when I created this layout a few years ago, that place is actually still there as a campground. Here's some pictures of me in Florida. I'm sharing the memory of when I ended up in the ER with sunburn on my cheeks. And then here's some dogs that we had growing up, and I told about them. I'm pretty sure this was Creative Memories paper. This is my mind's eye paper. I did a lot of fussy cutting here, but I felt like they fit the time period. This was about 1980. And I remembered the name of all but one person in here, and I couldn't really see the person very well, which is why I struggled. These are my mom and me, and I fell in love with these papers because they made me think of my mom, and so I found some photos of her and the two of us together as I was growing up. This is middle school age, and I wrote about some of the sewing and dresses she created for me. She was a very gifted seamstress. These are about my mom. My mom was born way out in the country. She attended a one-room schoolhouse. She was born in 1930. And the Great Depression affected her life a lot. Her father lost nearly everything. And so that really shaped who she was. And I wrote about how after that one-room schoolhouse, when she was old enough, she moved into town to work for a doctor's family so that she could attend high school. But then she traveled all over the country as an adult, and Canada and Mexico as well. And I just wanted to tell that story of her. Now these are opposites, but they're kind of together. This is my dad built me these snow caves. And then my husband did the same for my kids. This is a vacation. It's the only vacation I remember taking growing up with a sibling. They were all a lot older than me and didn't live at home anymore. But this is the only one I remember doing together. So I wrote about that. This is some, I think, Creative Memories paper, San Antonio in 1985. I had an aunt and uncle who lived there. He was a great uncle. We had a wonderful time. He was such a tease, and I enjoyed him so much. So I wrote about that. These I did on camera, not within the last year probably, about a favorite middle school teacher. And I love this 49 to Market stuff. And then we are just about to the end. I created this with some shaker pockets about me singing in a trio in 11th grade. And this is the last page of this album. It's just about, this is my mom and me, and then 12 years later, my daughter and me. And I used the quote, "She is clothed in strength and dignity," from Proverbs 31. Thanks for joining me. I hope that wasn't too long. I tried to go through it rather quickly. Hopefully I will do another layout share in the next month or two, because I'm getting to the place where I have a stack of layouts that need put away, and I've tried to get in the habit of sharing those before I get them all in the albums where they belong. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.